Are we talking about the best car things that happened this year?
Sure.
I think
us?
we should. I think we should get
Yeah.
into it. We should. This is yeah. This is the year end edition of Tired, the
final episode
car podcast
of the year.
for people who understand that cars are bad. And
I didn't even need my cue cards. We're in, baby.
yeah, got it.
Do it live.
And so yeah, we're gonna get into some I don't know, end of the year reflections.
Yeah.
All right.
Highlights, lowlights, winners, losers, maybe a car of the year. I don't know. Where should we start?
I mean, do we want to talk about our like personal? I feel bad because obviously the biggest car thing that happened to me this year has been discussed at extremely great length on this podcast already.
Well, yeah, I feel like, I mean, maybe just to get kind of the spoilers out of the way. I mean, there's two really obvious big stories this year, and one of them is the debut of the Tired podcast. I think that we can all agree that was pretty momentous thing.
Great success. Yeah.
That kind of took the automotive world by storm.
Changed the
Nope.
game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nobody saw it coming, and
Least of all any of us.
and then I think, I mean, there can be there's no other choice for car of the year. I mean, there's a lot of competition for runners up. I think we could debate those for at least an hour, but I think our car of the year choice, hands down, can be nothing other than the Frankenlotta.
The Frankenlotta, baby.
Of Rory Carroll.
Yeah, it certainly was literally the car of my entire year this year. like literally represented like 80% of the time I was awake this year was spent on the Lotta. So yeah.
And some of the time you were asleep.
Yeah, really. I think that was like the most a car has occupied my time and mental energy. But it came out great, and I'm very excited to continue with it. I think I had some Carol Cousins' Christmas party on Friday, which is always a pretty wild time. And we took everybody out to the garage and played with the Lotta a little bit, and it was really nice. I haven't been out there much recently. It has probably more than anything else in my history like set me on a path where I'm like not really interested in working on cars right now. Like I don't think I've really done any. I've done some little stuff here and there, but I have not been really motivated since finishing the Lotta to do anything big. So we'll see. Probably next spring when it's time to get ready for the hill climb again, we'll kick back into gear.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I would say too for runners up, the Cybertruck this year, I know like they started I think delivering those in 23, but this year's the year of the Cybertruck. This is like it's like one of those other things too where it's like what's the dumbest possible fucking thing that could happen? Mm-hmm. And then it's like this year is just answering that question left and right, like it's like the writers for this season of America are just like completely checked out, and they're like, yeah, we'll do Cybertruck and Kamala and Trump, and then the guy's going to shoot the health insurance guy, and it's just like the Cybertruck is definitely very representative of that reality. There's like an obvious piece of shit, very poorly built, very I think out there and unbelievable from a design perspective, not in a good way, but just so ridiculous that it has to be the car of the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely, unquestioned, and I mean, as if cars are kind of a reflection of their times and of their larger context. I mean, there's no No single vehicle that more epitomizes our our current historic moment
Yeah.
than than this kind of dystopian sci-fi hideous nightmare thing that really that functionally is like does nothing that it's supposed to do
Yeah.
or is touted as being capable of but just but man, as just a reflection of the current moment, man,
It's perfect.
slam dunk.
It really, it is kind of the anti-Lada too. Like the, I mean, aside from both of them having remarkably poor build quality, they do sit on opposite ends of the spectrum. I do wonder, like, if the doors that I screwed and zip tied into the Lada are, if the panel gaps are within Tesla's acceptable range of like what would they let this thing go out of the factory? I bet they would, but I do. Yeah, they are kind of, if I could say so, like opposite ends of the spectrum for cars of the year 2024.
Yeah, yeah. The lot is
Yeah.
the lot is the product of many people's the America we wish we could have, which is the product of many people's hard work. That ultimately is a long term project that succeeds at something. Not to be on top, but just to get everyone over the finish line.
Yeah. Diverse elements coming together,
Beloved, the people's car, sort of the underdog, beloved. It's what everyone wishes we and maybe mythologizes America kind of to be, but no, we're the fucking Cybertruck. We're the fucking like big stupid piece of shit, like funded by the worst people in the world, assembled by people being mistreated all the time. And fucking like, what makes me the maddest about the Cybertruck? You guys know my illness, which is as soon as I realized that cars had distinct design features, I was like, I like when there are angles. I like when there are straight lines on a car. And the Cybertruck, it's like one of those, like the PS1 can produce mind-boggling graphics, like with like 5 polygons of angles.
Yeah.
And it's taking the one thing that I like, that I know that I liked from the moment I first identified it about cars, which is when there are strong like angles and straight lines on it, and it's like perverting it to the worst possible degree, and it has heightened my hate for the Cybertruck unbelievably.
Well, the kind of paradoxical thing about the kind of that design language that you're talking about, Maddie, kind of as epitomized by kind of 70s Italian kind of the wedge, the kind of creased and folded paper, designs of Giugiaro Gandini at Bertone, and I mean these are all cars that were very very angular, very sharp, or even like William Towns and like the Aston Martin Lagonda in the 70s, just creased and folded, but the thing about them is they look like they're straight lines, but they're not. These guys all understood that it's like, okay, you want to make it look like it's a straight line, but you have to build in a very subtle curvature to it, or else it's going to look fucked up and stupid. It's going to look concave rather than being straight, and it's just going to look wrong. And they understood that, and so in designing those cars, they look very straight, they look very angular and rigid and taut, and it has all those cars have that tension that is really cool. But if you look really closely at it, if you lay a ruler atop it, you will see, oh no, these lines are not actually straight. They're very subtly curved. And the thing with the Cybertruck is that it shows you what happens when boss wants it straight. And so it's straight and it looks fucked up. It looks stupid.
I think that like the Franz von Holzhausen guy, like the regular Teslas don't look awful generally. I mean, I think like the Model 3 has some
look
angles
fine.
like it.
They look bad because of everything we associate with them. But if it was another, if it was another, I mean, they're not bad looking cars.
They're not interesting or cool looking cars,
generic,
but it's like it's like fine. Which leads me to believe that the Cybertruck was something that like came out of it was like, well, we could do this, haha, as a joke. And Elon was like, yeah, we're doing that. And everyone was like, oh,
We're doing exactly that.
Or
exactly this ridiculous thing that you sketched on a napkin, kind of jokingly.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's exactly what it's going to look
And then
like.
it's like, well, if we stick to this and try to put it into production, the proportions are going to get really wonky and it's going to look even worse. And he was like, yeah, no, perfect, do it. And that's kind of where we ended up. Very sad.
The one thing I will say about it, I mean, in its, and not to, not that I want to defend it, but
here we go.
Just
Peter's big rightward turn.
Oh no.
Inevitable tired pod canceled.
I do have to give it one thing, which is that I mean, when you see them like on the freeway or if you're in a city environment, like they look as fully stupid as they are. But occasionally, like I've seen them a few times just walking around town here in Rochester and walking around like some old neighborhoods where the houses are all 100+ years old, and there's 100+ year old trees everywhere, and it's like, these neighborhoods that look like they're from another era, right? Yeah. And in that context, and so there's like a black wrapped one that I'll occasionally see parked in the driveway of one of these houses. And in that context, it does the thing where it's like, oh wow, like this looks like a thing from the future, not in a good way,
not good future.
Right? Like, but yeah, not a good future. But it does give you that weird sense of anachronism where it's just like, oh wow, these elements do not go together, and it's really jarring in a way that I think was the intended effect, right? Rather than like when you see it on the street in Southern California or in fucking downtown Omaha, which I think was the first place that I actually saw one. It's just like,
to me they just look they do look different obviously than anything else on the road, but they're so ungainly and weird looking, where it's like it looks like trash or like something that somebody built at home, like, and not in a good way. Like it looks
exactly.
Yeah.
No, it looks right. It looks like when they show those guys, where it's like, oh hey, this one guy built a Lamborghini, out of like sheet steel and fiberglass or whatever,
kind of,
and it's just like, okay,
kind of did,
but yeah, it has that vibe of something home built, and
it's a bummer.
Anyway,
it's a bummer. There's no question about it. But that's 2024 for you. Kind of a bummer year in so many ways.
What other candidates? What other candidates for I guess cars or stories?
Stories wise, I think like the full on crashing of the EV thing in the United States is the big story. I mean, I think like as someone who, I wouldn't want to use the word predicted it, but it was like, I did predict it. Fuck it. I said it. Like I said it years ago. I've been saying it for
That's fucking right.
for 5 years, and I wrote about it 2 years ago.
They all called you crazy, Rory.
And
fucking right.
People did say it was crazy, and they did say it was stupid, and like there was never a reason for this to work in the United States, and it is so plain that it was a fucking fantasy, and it was like the country, the people of this country, and the institutions in this country are never going to deliver something like mass EV adoption. Like it's just not what this country is. And I love like, some people who I respect in the car business and in the I guess auto industry or whatever you want to call it, but it was like telling me like, oh, in the thing that I would see over and over again from EV people and executives was, once Americans see the benefits, they'll switch en masse. And it was like, what are you talking about? Like, do you know any Americans? And it's like, it's just like, I don't know. It is unfortunate too. I mean, I think like we've all said, it's like it's not good for the environment to manufacture things generally. It's not good to put more cars on the road generally. But it was like the EV thing was maybe like a little, at least, gesture in the direction of like people acknowledging and giving a shit what happens to all of us. And it was like too big a hill. And I think like I could be wrong, but seeing like the election, seeing like the kind of failure, even like Biden, delivering some big changes and kind of like improvements to the way like, certainly some funding for chargers and like some incentives for people to switch and yada yada.
Dodge Chargers?
Yes. No. EV chargers.
Oh.
Yeah. But there were some policy swings in that direction under Biden, and it was like roundly rejected, obviously in favor of Trump, which is like, who knows? He may mandate that all Americans have to buy a Tesla, but I do not believe he will be making it easier in general to buy an EV. Which like I think he's less explicitly anti-EV than a lot of liberals would say he is, but I just don't see his administration like delivering like money for public charging infrastructure or for and I think more than that, it gives all the manufacturers who kind of have been nervously sweating their commitments to invest in EVs. From the early 2020s until the 2023, there was a lot of like, we're going to be 100% EV by 2035 or all these like commitments or whatever. And as those cars have failed to sell and kind of failed in the market, a lot of them have been sweating like, oh shit, like, well, obviously this isn't going to happen. How do we get out of this? And like whatever the Trump administration is going to do, they have kind of an excuse to say like, look, there's just not support for these in the public, and there's not support from a policy standpoint. So like, we can't do it. And like, I jokingly last year at Jalopnik was like, it's crazy that we've lived through like the beginning and end of the like EV era in the United States. And I was kind of joking, but it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm not. Like maybe this is kind of like, or maybe they hover around 10% of the total vehicle fleet in America for forever. And I think that's not unlikely.
I mean, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, I wonder if what we've seen in the last year, which has definitely been like a real dip. Sorry, my stupid cat is like scratching at the door. He really wants to come in here. I'm going to open it up. BRB.
Yeah. Which cat?
It's Winkle.
Hi,
the big
Winkle.
Boy. My guy.
Big boy.
But yeah, to play devil's advocate, I wonder if the kind of failure to launch of the EV that we've seen in a lot. No, dude, you're not getting.
No, cat's on cam. Cat's on cam. Cat's on
well,
cam.
I don't want. He's gonna step on the keyboard and. So, to play devil's advocate, I wonder if what we've seen in the last year in terms of the kind of the dip in fortunes of the EV in this country is a permanent thing or maybe just a kind of I'm curious to see where things go from here, because I could see it. I mean, it definitely looks like, okay, the narrative to this point is like, okay, the manufacturers make these huge investments in bringing EVs to market. They've done it. They're still doing it. And now they have a ton of EVs just sitting on lots because the infrastructure's not there. And a lot of buyers, are more excited about hybrids, about the practicality of they're not tech averse, they're not electricity averse, but they like the usefulness of just having like a hybrid where it's going to get you big gains in efficiency, while still being versatile enough that you can take it on a long road trip and not have range anxiety, not have to worry about, finding a charger when you're, not at home or whatever. I wonder if as the infrastructure kind of slowly rolls out, I mean, like it's kind of, it's like the way that like, I mean, to to bring in another seeming kind of flash in the pan thing. I mean, look at fucking crypto. The way that crypto had this huge bubble, and then it collapsed, and we all laughed. But I think there was enough kind of institutional will behind it, because there are people in the banking industry and in the government who want to see this happen, and who are already invested enough that it's like, no, this fits with our plan, and we want this to happen. Maybe not with fucking Dogecoin or whatever other shit coins are around, but it's like, but with Bitcoin, and even even pre-Trump, that was kind of back at a pretty healthy level. And so I wonder if the EV dip will be kind of a similar thing, and at least in the U.S., and that might rebound slowly at some point. I mean, it's not. I don't think that the internal combustion cars are going to disappear from the U.S. landscape anytime soon, or anytime even in the midterm future. But I do see. I do think that it's possible, if not likely, that EVs could eventually make up maybe half of the market or something like that.
I think to me it's like there's no, and I think I've probably said this in the pod before, but it's like, what are the incentives for consumers to do that? And it's like, unless you're offering EVs that are substantially cheaper than the equivalent gasoline car or something, like there has to be a reason, and there's no reason now.
I think as the economies of scale kick in, and EVs become more affordable relative to, because at this point you're still paying a premium for an EV, right? Yeah. And the idea is that you make that back in savings, like with gas or whatever. But I think that for a lot of people who, I mean, I think for a lot of families, I think it totally, and especially home owning families, which is not everybody, but it's still a significant chunk of people, especially car buying people who are in a position to buy a new car. I see it as, I could see a lot of people just having an EV as just like their around town car, and then having an ICE car as their kind of road trip car.
I guess
just because I mean, especially as it gets cheaper, as the infrastructure kind of gets built out. I think, and actually, and I think too, for people who are kind of on a budget, it's like, I think there are some, there are savings to be had, and once, I don't think it's unlikely or impossible for EVs to reach a kind of price parity with internal combustion cars. And at that point, I think for a lot of, especially younger budget-minded buyers, that for them maybe the EV is just a smarter, more practical choice, just because you don't have to put gas in it.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't think and I think if we can get Chinese EVs here at a substantially lower price, like that's something to talk about. But like the people I talk to, I have had an EV for most of this year now. And the regular non-car people that I talk to are like, what in the world are you, like, how is this possible for you? And it's like, oh, I charge it at home, yada, yada. And they're like, they look at you like you're like, oh, I'm going to replace my arm with a cyborg arm, or what? Like, it's like, that is insane to do. And it's like the idea that like, and I think like my bigger thesis on this generally is like, absent like substantial like price point savings, like when you're buying the car savings.
Yes.
it is just hard to get Americans to change their behavior in any way. And I think like if you look at, if you look at the numbers on EVs so far, there are certainly a number of Americans who will do the thinking and do the research and say like, oh, this is a second car for around town. It's convenient. I don't have to get gas. I can just plug it in at home. Like those people do exist, but they've already bought EVs. Like that's the 10% of Americans who have already bought EVs. And I think to me, it's like the regular normal people are, like they're not putting solar panels in their house. They're not like it is so out of your range of consideration that it's like I just like I said, it's like unless there's an incentive in the form of this is much cheaper or this is easier in some way, I just don't see like what the incentive is for the average person. And like like I said, like nothing in American behavior, large consumer behavior, indicates to me that they have any interest in the environment or efficiency or even saving money on gas. Like look at the cars that people are actually buying. Like they just don't behave that way.
Well, here's the thing, though. None of this is getting into like essential precarity, though, all the predatory systems involved. Like no one talking about EVs ever talks about. Okay, I charge it at home. Here's what that did to my electric bill. Which the knock-on effect of that, if we move away from gas to electric, is every utility, which has been privatized, going to start gouging people because now there's all this extra cash flow coming from charging EVs. We're not talking about stuff like the Democrats' plan for EVs would probably be like, oh, you'll get a tax break, as if that matters to anyone making under a certain amount of money per year. We're not talking about like the rate on every car loan being fucking insane. We're not talking about like what would it cost me to install a charger at my house when I don't have $500 to go to urgent care. Like nothing about like exactly fucking like what from where would I get my atomized American monad private entity money to make the investment in me driving an EV? Like there has to be top-down infrastructure, and we've talked about that before. Like the only way we get EVs is through massive top-down investment. There is no room in the risk matrix of the American mind right now, with general precarity of every household, especially renters or people who have had housing instability or whatever. But like, there's no room in that risk matrix to say, now what if I completely switched up and like moved to an EV? Like you would have to give every American the headroom to even think about it by doing it with infrastructure. Like I agree. There's no the modern American could not conceive of making the moral decision to move to an EV because it has been superseded by there are 100 other things I'm worried about, and there's no way that like I wouldn't get fucked if I do this. That's the thing, is I am sure if I've switched to an EV, like an EV that needed charging, I am certain that within like 5 years, like everything around me would find a way to fuck me for having done that. And like that's the mindset. But that's everything. Everything's a scam now, dude. Everything's a scam. And even the infrastructure contracts for putting the shit in will probably get scooped up by a fucking piece of shit like scam company. It's going to do a shitty job because it's America. It sucks here.
Like that, those conversations, like over the summer, I had like conversations with people who are not car people about it. And it was like, I think I had a pretty good window into that. Just from being in media and like reading jalopnik comments or whatever, but it's like jalopnik commenters are massively more sophisticated than the average American when it comes to understanding like why you would want an EV. And I think like I said, I've never had people look at me like I'm nuts, like I did when I explained that I bought an expensive electric car. It was like, how do you, like it was just like. And then it was like, oh, it's actually not that bad. Like I can charge it most of the way in half an hour. Like I just pull over and get some gas or get some food at a gas station while I charge my car or whatever. And they're like, like just like eyes wide, like that is insane. Like, you know, I would never in a million years consider doing that. And it's like, oh yeah, you wouldn't. And that's the thing, is like, you live in a McMansion and you commute 2 hours to your or an hour to your job, and like, you don't like, none of your behavior as a person who could conceivably afford this car indicates that you would ever lift a finger to do it. And I think, again, there's like people for status reasons or for early adopter reasons or for like genuine, I'm an environmentally conscious liberal type reasons that have done it. But I think like we're looking at probably the cap, unless, like I said, unless there's some kind of incentive to deliver it. Like Chinese cars would be a huge one. You know, if an EV is the cheapest car in America, then yes, things start to change, especially right now. Or if
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a more likely thing. I think it's very unlikely that any inexpensive Chinese car makes it through.
we'll see.
But
We'll see
that's-
about that.
at least in the next 4 to 8 years. But I mean, and the thing is, and I mean, I agree with both of you guys what you were just saying, but I still, I mean, the fact is, I still see so many fucking Teslas everywhere I go, and those cars are, and some of those people are, you know, and for a long time, a lot of those people were, I mean, Rory, you and I have joked about this, about like, you know, the only car that has a higher rate of vanity plates on it than a Corvette is Teslas, right? Because they're all like, you know, no oil or whatever.
Gas, LOL, haha.
That was the case for a long time. It's less the case now. I see so many just, I mean, it's people who don't fit any of the, like, I don't think they're not Elon people. They're not Elon cultists. They're not like hardcore environmentalist, you know, but I think they're just people who, I mean, just like our next door neighbor, you know, our neighbors who live next door. It's not them, but like the wife is like Indian American, and her parents like will come over, and they drive like a Model 3, like a little Model 3, and I mean, these are just older, you know, Indian immigrants, and I don't know like what their background is or what they do for a living or whatever, but it's like, you know, they just strike me as just very normie people.
Yeah.
And I don't think their choice of a Tesla was anything other than just like, well, it seems like a you know, a practical and simple thing, and we don't have to put gas in it, and we have a place to park it and charge it, you know, and I think there's a lot of people who do kind of, especially in terms of new car buyers, I still think that there's room for growth there, and I don't know. We'll see.
I
Time
think
will
that
tell, but
the thing to know about that though is I do like whatever, I see Teslas too, and I notice a lot of EVs, but like their global market share is minuscule. Like if Tesla, which is the largest EV maker in America, and it's not even the largest EV maker in the world. I think it's they're control, I think 17% of the global EV market globally. But if you were to just erase Tesla from the auto industry tomorrow, it would not change anything meaningfully about like global auto sales, or like they're I believe the last time I looked, their global market share in total was something like 0.04% or something like that, which is like non-existent.
No, everything that I'm talking about is just purely in the context of the U.S. market.
And they're
you do see them in Europe, but they're not even there. They're not like
I mean, I think they're less than 50% of the EV fleet in the U.S. or the new EV sales last year. They were less than 50%, and I think it's I forgot what the total U.S. market share is, but it's something in the low tens. So it's like 12% of the U.S. Auto market is EV or something like that. So I mean it. Like I said, and I think there is kind of like it's like a bias or whatever because you notice them because you're like, ah, fuck that guy when you see him. But they just don't sell that many cars.
But even if we're talking about like, okay, erase Tesla, and we do say the U.S. market floods with cheap Chinese EVs, thank God, it's war is over, everyone's happy, yippee. If suddenly the U.S. the cheapest car you can get is an EV, all the lowest income people who need a car are getting an EV. In the system we have, unfortunately, what you've created is a massive vulnerable class that can be exploited because they are dependent upon the very likely quickly privatized EV infrastructure that will then be used against them in some way. Like, it's a very worrying prospect because it's like, look how easy Americans are to puppet string over gas prices. I mean, I just feel like creating a massive...
I mean, but the thing is, but also, I mean, how is that different from just the world that we live in now? I
exactly.
mean, with gas prices going up and down. So, I mean, it's,
There's no good solution with the current economic forces we live under. Unfortunately, it's all bad. So the problem is capitalism once again.
U.S. EV market share in Q3 of last year was 8.9%, which is the highest it's ever been.
Wait, say that again.
U.S. EV market share in Q3.
Oh, I see.
Q3 of last year was 8.9%. It's the highest ever.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it is still growing, and I mean, it is
growing. Yeah,
it's definitely, yeah. I mean, and this is, I guess that's my larger point is that where things are at, it's not. I mean, the manufacturers are all panicking because they've flooded the fucking dealerships with EVs that people aren't, and people are only buying a small percentage of them, but it is still the case that it's like that number is still going up.
Well,
and I wonder if
analysts would tell you though that number went up this year because all the manufacturers introduced massive incentives and like super cheap lease deals to move the number. So like, I mean, you can open up any paper in the United States and find lease deals on everybody's flagship EV.
Sure.
In the hundreds of dollars a month. Which is it's good. They'll move some cars that way, but and maybe like that's what needs to happen. But that's automakers aren't looking at that and being like, oh, great, like we're leasing these cars for $89 a month. Thank God, like it worked.
Right.
They're all pretty bummed out about that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I do think, like I said, go ahead.
I was just going to say that for listeners, I mean, we keep mentioning China, and this is a free episode, correct, Maddie?
The China intro episode is Patreon, and then this one is free. Yes.
Right. So the last Patreon episode that we just recorded the other day is about Chinese cars and the Chinese car market and Chinese car manufacturers, and it's a survey of that, and it's pretty fucking crazy. like I got a little obsessed for a few days, just kind of going down the rabbit hole of the Chinese car market, because it's something that I had been kind of vaguely aware of for a long time, but hadn't really dipped a toe into it, and oh my God. So yeah, that's a reason to subscribe to the Patreon, just to check that out.
Patreon.com/tiredpod, TIREDPOD, one word, tiredpod, patreon.com/tiredpod. Thank you,
Maddie. And yeah, it's a fun episode, and we're gonna definitely be talking more about the about Chinese cars, because I think this is a big, well, I think it's a story that kind of dwarfs and makes trivial a lot of the shit that we talk about on this podcast. Just, I mean, in the true enormity of what's going on over there. It's like, man, you don't even know. Shit is crazy, and yeah, it's a whole other world.
It's like the thing that you think of as the global auto industry is actually just like a little sideshow to the actual global auto industry that's happening in China.
Exactly. If you're not paying attention to what's going on over there, it's kind of like you're into indie rock, and you think that like indie rock is everything in the world, that everybody in the world just listens to that, and it's like, no, man. It's like
there's Imagine Dragons. Imagine Dragons is out there selling out stadiums. You morons.
No, this is the thing.
Yeah.
No, it's like when my wife and I started dating, and and she's not really a music person, but she was, she's from El Salvador, but she knows a bunch of like the kind of big acts, in kind of Latin music, and she kind of started turning me on to some of that stuff, and there's this band Maná that she would talk about, and like she really liked some of their songs. We'd listen to some Maná, and then I was like, well, what's the deal with this band? And I looked them up just to kind of get a like place them in context in a larger, and it's like, oh, this is one of the biggest fucking bands on the planet. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's like, I'm thinking, it's like, oh, how cool that it's like, oh, there's kind
local,
of like,
yeah,
it's like, well, it's like, oh, these guys must be like the U2 of Latin America, and then it's like, no, they're as big as U2.
No, U2,
like they're
U2
bigger than
is
U2.
The Maná
they sell more fucking records
of Ireland.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
They sell more fucking records than Metallica. It's like this band is fucking
huge,
mammoth, right? Yeah. And it's like in this way that like I just like, and suddenly I again, just granted a glimpse into the extent of my own provincialism. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe the world is bigger than I realized it was, and yeah, this is very much a case where like, if you're into American cars and European cars and Japanese cars, basically Western world cars, like the stuff that we're all into, it's kind of the, at this point, it's
a sideshow.
It's the minor leagues.
Yeah.
The big leagues have moved somewhere else, man. They've left us behind.
They're not opening for Maná. They're on the side stage at the festival where Maná is playing.
They're not. No. They're on the sampler the label put out at the end of the year. They're like track 13 of 20.
That they're giving away.
Yeah.
That's fun to think about, though. That's good.
It is. Yeah, it's been very invigorating.
Yeah.
To discover that.
It's not quite,
but yeah, go and check that out.
Not quite as fucked up everywhere as it is right here. But tell you what's not fucked up: drive a stick shift. Yeah.
Rory's making the pivot.
So this is a topic that we brought up on like one of the first episodes. So probably 4 people remember this, but we were talking about teaching people to drive a stick, and I was like, oh, it's really easy. There's a method, and I learned this. So, like, I learned to drive a stick the normal way, which is your dad screaming at you from the passenger seat and wondering why you can't fucking manage how to do this. And the typical way that people tell you to do it is you put the car in first gear, and then you balance the clutch and the gas pedal. So as you're feeding in gas, you are releasing the clutch to make the car go, which is incomprehensible. There's no way to understand that concept and to learn how to do it in any quick way. So my dad took me out of my Miata, in his Miata, and like I said, there was a lot of frustration on both of our parts, and we ended up giving up. But I had like kind of an explanation from him on how to do it, and then my cousin Tara, super cool, Tara Rose Carroll, wonderful, wonderful person and kind of like a lifelong ally in my kind of like being less buttoned down, I guess. She was like one of my cool cousins. Her and her brother TJ had a Mazda RX-7 that was a stick, a first gen RX-7, and she was like, "Go fucking drive it! Like you can go drive it." And I was like, that's kind of like, okay, unsupervised time, not getting yelled at. Like that's where you figure things out. And then my buddy Greg.
That was how my dad. The way that my dad did it was he just tossed me the keys. To this car, so go figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a better.
He wasn't even gonna subject himself to the to the
there
right
was not
seat.
a single relative in my family capable of driving stick who in my teenage years, by that time I wanted to be in a car with for longer than like 10 minutes. Would not have been good for me. Would not have gone good.
Yeah. So I did that, and then I learned my buddy Greg had a Tercel that I used to just beat the absolute ever-loving shit out of. It was like a 92 Tercel. Like that was like the cheapest car you could buy in America. It was a 4-speed Tercel, which is like
wow, 92.
Yeah, crashed it once, but we absolutely we were not good to that car. But like that's how I learned to drive a stick, and then I started buying cars that were sticks, and it was like a long kind of winding road to being semi-competent at driving a manual. But I think I was at Auto Week, so I would have been in my maybe early 30s. I was listening to Car Talk, RIP, probably the greatest, in my opinion, automotive media franchise in history. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but
until now.
Until now. Right, yeah. Until the heir apparent. Anyway. So I was listening to Car Talk, and I forgot which brother it was, but he was like, here's how you do it. You get the car into a flat parking lot, put the new driver in the driver's seat, obviously, have them push the clutch in and put the car in first gear, and then have them slowly release the clutch until it starts to pick up. And then once you've released the clutch, the car will start to move on its own. It won't stall, and the car will start to roll. And you can control the speed of the car by pushing the clutch in. So the car is rolling, and you're moving along, and you want to slow down or you want to stop. You push the clutch in, and you just have them drive around the parking lot like that for 30 minutes or so. You can drive up a slight incline doing that. You can make turns doing that. And then once they're comfortable, you can have them start to add in the gas. So use the throttle pedal, and then you can show them to use the clutch, push the clutch in to shift, and then you add that, and then you work your way up to like, okay, we're driving on the city streets, and then we can drive on the freeway. But I've taught dozens of people since learning this how to drive a stick, and I have never failed at like making people comfortable driving a stick the first time out. And it is like revelation. And I think that the way that it works is, instead of trying to figure out this unnatural act of trying to balance gas and clutch, which they don't feel equal. There's no car which, like, the sensation of pushing the gas pedal, it feels the same as releasing the clutch. Like, the clutch is a spring, it's like usually a heavier spring, and the gas is usually a lighter spring. It just doesn't feel like you're balancing two equal things. It feels alien. But if you're just focused on where the pickup point in the clutch is, that's the whole key to everything. The key is feeling that engagement of the clutch. And what's happening is, like, the clutch is mating against the flywheel, and the engine is actually then driving the transmission or the rear wheels or whatever. But that's the sensation. That's the key to learning. And I think, like, once you have that feel of, like, that clutch engagement, everything else falls into place immediately. And it's like, it becomes really, really easy to drive a stick. So that's the trick. And it, like I said, it has not failed me once. I've, like, people who would not call themselves confident drivers in a car with an automatic get in it, and like I said, within 30 minutes they're driving a stick, and it totally opens people's eyes. It's really really good. So that's the car talk method that I learned. We got to get.
That's funny because it's when we talked about this before, I had mentioned that that I sometimes think about, I have a daughter who's now 13, and so she will, where the moment is coming, where she's going to be learning how to drive. And I've thought about the fact, because I want her to learn how to drive a manual car, just to have that in her arsenal of party tricks. And so I have thought about like, well, what would be the easiest way to teach this, and I kind of settled upon kind of what I thought would be kind of like a good method, and it's basically exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
Just so I feel very
You
vindicated.
intuited the car
It's like,
the car
oh,
talk
okay,
method.
yeah, no, that's exactly what I thought, because it's just that thing of just learning how to modulate the clutch, and just that take up. And I mean, the thing with the throttle is it does kind of confuse things. It can confuse things because the thing is, like, if you let out the clutch too quickly, the car will stall.
Mm-hmm.
So it is but most of the time, the amount of throttle that the car is going to have at idle.
Yeah.
If you let out the clutch slowly enough, you can play with that pickup and that modulation, and kind of learn where it is and how to engage it just very gradually.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's kind of the whole thing.
It also avoids I think one of the big frustrating things, like people when they learn to drive, they're afraid the car's going to take off because they gave it too much gas, because they hear the engine revving and they're like, oh shit. And then they also get really scared when you stall, especially if you stall hard. Like if you dump the clutch and it flops, it sounds like the car is braking, and it feels really bad. Everything shakes and throws you around a little bit, and it's like, it's a bad negative feedback to get that
Sure.
lugging sensation, and you totally avoid that that part of the equation. So I encourage you to, if you have a rich uncle with a Porsche 911 or a vintage Ferrari this holiday season, get it out, whatever the weather. Take it to a parking lot where you can safely do this, and teach yourself how to drive a stick.
Do we have stuff that we are looking forward to for 2025, car or non-car related?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do have some fun stuff happening job-wise that I can't really talk about. Not job-wise, but work-wise anyway. But I actually am really excited about the second go around with the Lada. I think now that we know it works, it's time to make it fast. And I think there's a lot of with aero and with making power, and there's a lot of fun ways to spend money, which is kind of why I have to get a job, unfortunately, is that I do have a mortgage and a car payment and children and all that stuff, but most importantly, I need to spend another $20,000 on this $500 car. Make sure it gets up the hill really, really fast. But yeah,
Arrow.
Yeah.
I love that Arrow is in there.
Oh, Arrow's in there, baby. I was talking to
This thing needs more fucking downforce.
it does.
Man.
I was talking to a friend of mine who's a real racer, who's run IMSA teams and won Trans Am championships, and he actually owned a race series at one point. And he's like, what are the rules around aero? And he was like, before you do anything else, he's like, you need to make this thing stick to the ground. And I was like, I like what you're saying. He was like, bring it down to my shop. He's like, I've got all the shit we had when we did a Pikes Peak car. He's like, I've got all the wings and canards and whatever carbon fiber shit you want to stick on the car. We can glue it to the ground. And I was like, this is what the Empire Hill Climb people are not prepared for is me showing up with a car that weighs under 2,000 pounds and has over 2,000 pounds of downforce.
That's right. A lot of sucker car showing up looking like a fucking like Audi Quattro Sport like from 1985.
Yeah,
it's like giant ass rear wing and this huge like.
Yeah, it's like how do you
splitter on the front?
How do you ruin a grassroots motorsports event by taking it way too seriously and like yeah, there used to not be any rules. You could pretty much run whatever you wanted until Rory showed up with the fucking sucker car and started doing 15s up the hill.
I'm ready.
Yep.
We're gonna repaint all those hammer sickles on there too.
Yep, it'll just like the McMurtry or whatever ruined Goodwood, where they're like, all right, well you can't do that. You can't go 300 fucking miles an hour here. That's my goal, is to ruin this event that I'm also responsible for organizing in part with my.
Good. Get in there and flex on them.
Yep. It's like, hey, listen, do I want to learn how to drive better, or do I want to put a 11-foot carbon fiber wing on my Soviet car? It's gonna have to be the 11-foot carbon fiber wing, given my skills.
It's gonna do the hill climb what the Porsche 91730 did to Can-Am. You just show up with this 1,000 horsepower thing that just fucking like completely kills this series because literally nobody else can even compete. Everybody just gives up and goes home.
Good.
That's the goal.
Just show up to Little League with Ken Griffey Jr. Just get in there.
That's really like been my MO with everything that I've ever gotten involved with, is just taking it way too seriously and ruining it, either for myself or for everybody else. So that's what we're gonna do.
Can I tell you guys a really funny? This is a tour story, but about Brandon, Mountain Goats tour manager.
My angel, Brandon Eggleston.
Yeah, a guy about whom my wife, after 5 minutes of meeting him and seeing him in action and putting out fires and dealing with all of our diva bullshit, he walks out of the room and my wife just turns to me and says, Brandon is going to heaven.
Yes. We love, in this house, we love Brandon Eggleston. That's my boy.
Yeah, he's...
Well, a fun thing. Oh, go ahead, Rory.
No, I was going to say he is an angel.
Yeah, no, it is the best. He is. Yeah, that's our man, Brandon.
Solidest dude ever.
Yes.
But a guy who works hard, but occasionally plays hard. And on a rare night off, like you'll get into it, and he'll like. The things that would happen on days off where he like didn't have shit to deal with, like he would be the kind of ringleader and kind of chaos orchestrator, and so this has happened a few times, but there was one time really memorably in, I want to say, is it fucking Ames or Iowa? It's got to be Iowa City. This town that we've had like a disproportionate number of days off and nights off. But Brandon led us on this bar crawl around town, and maybe it was a Friday. It might have been 4th of July. I think it was actually 4th of July. And we would go into these bars, and he would do this thing that this is his favorite fucking thing to do, which, there's those like electronic jukeboxes.
Mm-hmm.
Where and you can download an app and do it from your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the touch tunes.
Yeah, exactly, touch tunes. Yeah. So the thing that his favorite thing in the world is to fucking like go into a bar that's just totally like hopping, just like packed, super loud, obnoxious. Everybody's trashed. And the music's going. And the thing is, with touch tunes, you can pay extra to cut in line, right? And he would just like pick like some really terrible song, he would pick like La Vida Loca or Everybody Hurts by REM or something. Just something
Totally
just like designed to just kill the vibe, to just eviscerate the vibe. And he would just like like pay the extra $10 or whatever just to like jump into the front, and everybody just be like looking around like, what the fuck is this? God damn it! And then the song would end. And like people would be walking over to the jukebox to like put more money in to like, you know, get the party going back on. But he would keep jumping to the front, and he would just like stack the queue where like it would just be the same song on repeat over and over. So it would just be like everybody hurts again and again and again. And eventually like people would just get so bummed out that they would fucking bail. And so like bar after bar we go into, and it's just like total, you know, like
Edmund Fitzgerald.
totally happening
The record of
scene,
the Edmund
right?
Fitzgerald comes on.
And then it's like 15 minutes later, the bar is empty. And Brandon should just sit there with this big shit-eating grin on his face. He's so happy.
I'm surprised the bartender or somebody didn't fucking jump him. Like,
well, the thing is, the bartenders would just be like, "What? I don't know what's going on, man." They would go, they would unplug the machine and plug it back in or whatever. It's like they would try to reboot it or something. And then it would come back and it's like, "Yep, living La Vida Loca again."
It's broken.
What's new, Pussycat? 12 times in the jukebox, baby.
You should be able to do
thought
that, but it should identify you. It's like it should.
Totally.
That's the flip side of it. It should tell everyone in the bar who did it.
The fucking PvP flag appears over your fucking head.
The thing I love about it, though, is it's just like, and I said to him, it's like, you know, I mean, the thing is, Brandon, like most people, I mean, when you go to drink at a bar, I mean, that's kind of a choice, right? Like, I mean, because you can just go to a store. I mean, if you want to drink, you can just go to a store and buy booze and go home and drink if you just want to drink and be by yourself,
I've done
or
it.
you know, with your friends or
yeah.
whatever. When you go to a bar, like the idea is kind of like, well, I want to drink, but I also want to be around other people, right? I want to be in a community of people, some of whom I know, some of whom I don't. Maybe they're friends you've yet to make or whatever, you know. But it's like that social aspect to it that kind of adds to it. That's why people like to go to bars. And it's like, and for Brandon, and I would say this to him, he'd just be like, yeah, I don't care about that, man. I just want I want the bar to myself.
Send him home.
Which, like, that's how I imagine you, Rory, with the freaking lot of sucker car just going. It's like, no, I don't care.
I don't care if you have fun.
I want to come.
I'm here to have fun.
This is my
I want
hit.
to come to the race. I don't care if anybody else is competing.
Yeah.
I'm just but I want to come to the race and just destroy everything.
Yeah, I want to ruin it.
The same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine
on mine, baby.
Yep.
No, that's like, Peter, I'm just imagining the antics that Brandon and John Worster could get up to, just combined, like John just pulling out like, oh, here's an annoying song I know. Oh, just play this. Like top 10, like mapping out his like top 10 worst Kiss songs. Like, okay, do this for an hour. See how many people stay, you know? Like, just like absolute devastation.
My kids, I think that we talked about Kiss on the podcast.
Yes,
They fucking
yes, that
love
was
Kiss.
the intro to
Yeah.
one of our Saturn episodes.
They'd be like, yes. Dad, can we move here? Can we live here? Where the Kiss songs flow? I think they're thankfully off Kiss right now, which is hopefully not to be. Because whatever the streaming services took the Scooby-Doo Kiss movie off the service, so you can't watch it anymore. So they're well, you guys sound bummed.
Gotta get them. The DVD, the Blu-ray. They need the Blu-ray box set, man.
Well, Christmas shopping.
No.
for his
God damn it.
family
Criterion
as
Collection.
No, we're not doing it. I don't need the kids in the Kiss Army anymore.
What if you show them Scooby-Doo meets the Harlem Globetrotters and they both want a ball?
They do both want a
Like-
ball. They do.
Oh shit!
Oh yeah.
Oh, see, you got to get on that.
Yeah,
Show them
yeah.
Scooby-Doo meets the Harlem Globetrotters.
They would love that. They would love that.
You gotta find that. If that's not on streaming, I will find it for you.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Thank you. What are you excited about, Matt? Are you gonna come to a race this year? I feel like we should get you to a race.
My birthday is June 21st,
Yes.
which is on the same weekend as Watkins Glen.
We should come.
So I think that
Funny-
would be fun.
Funny enough, I just paid for my campsite spot.
There we go.
Field trip.
Field trip. Let's say stay tired, and I'll tell you guys a funny story after this.
Everybody, stay tired.
Stay tired.
Yeah, stay tired, and we'll
And we'll see you next year.